Okay, now continuing on with chapter 7. So here we're reading a file and then we are looking at the data and then seeing what cleaning up are necessary and what kind of modifications we should or we have to make to the data. That's the topic of this chapter. And last time we started out with the string functions separating the names and telephone number and all that. And then we started with handling missing values. So one approach to handling first you need to figure out how to count the number of missing values. So you use .isNA. IsNA will convert all the data points into true or false. True if it is missing, false otherwise. And then you can use the sum, divide by the length. If you just sum, you get the number of missing points. If you divide the sum by the length, then you get the proportion and so on. And then how do you deal with missing values? The one approach is if you have any missing value, just drop that row, or if you have any missing values in a column, drop that column. It's not a good approach, okay? But you need to know how to do it if you have to do it. Okay, so it's not a recommended approach. So there are several options of doing it, and the very first thing that we started out with is rows. So if you have any missing values in rows, okay, how do you drop those rows? Okay, and there are three options for that. Axis is equal to 0 for rows is default. So if you're talking about rows, you don't have to say anything about axis. And then how will be, if you don't say how, then it is any. Even if you have just one missing value, that row will be dropped. So you end up dropping most of the rows. Okay, if you say how equal to all, okay, any is the default. All, then if only it will drop a row only if all the columns are missing values, and of course that's very rare. Then you can specify a threshold number, thresh, so it will be how many good values you must have. So thresh equal to 2 means if it has 2 good values, then that row will be retained. So here we have, let's make sure that all the rows above, okay, we run all the rows above. Okay, and thresh equal to 2 means if you have 2 good values, then you retain it, and if you say, okay, if you have 4 good values, then okay, and we ran it last time, it worked. I don't know what happened to it now. Okay, so where was I? Okay, threshold, okay, you specify how many good values you must have, and it's going to look for that many good values and then delete the ones that do not meet that. Okay, so drop any rows with missing values. Okay, so this one is in the wrong place. This has to go down. Okay, so now there is one exception when it comes to missing values, dropping missing values. Okay, we have in data analytics, we have predictor columns, and then we have a target column. We use the predictor columns to predict what the predictor column or the target column is supposed to be. Okay, target is like the dependent variable in regression, the y. Okay, the x's are the predictors. using those predictors, we want to predict the value of y, which is the target. So if the value of the target is missing, then that row is not going to be useful at all for us, because there is nothing to predict there for us to predict and compare. So if there is a missing value in the target, then we really need to get rid of those rows. There is no two ways about that. So here is a way of getting rid of a row for a selected column, where if in a particular column value is missing, then you get rid of that row. Okay? So you start with, let's assume that V5 is the target column. Suppose that V5 is the target column. Then we want to look at that column and then see whether it is missing or not. Okay. Is an A, test whether it is missing. The opposite of is an A is not an A. Okay. Not an is an A. If is an A is true, not an A will be false. It's just the opposite. So not an A will give you true if it is a good value, okay, and false if it is missing value. So we can use that as a mask. So only the true ones will get selected. The false ones will be left out. So we take the data frame DF2, and then in the indexing, so this first, the square bracket is for indexing, you put the mask there, then all the true values will get selected, all the false rows will be rejected. So that's how you use a particular column. So drop any row with missing values from a target column. Okay, you look at just one column, and if there are any missing values, that those corresponding rows are now rejected. Okay, so this is how you set up the mask, which gives you true or false, and you use that. So now wherever V5 was, say like 3 and 4 were the false, okay, 3 and 4 are now gone. Okay, and I think we've already done this, I guess. If rows with at least one missing value are dropped, how many missing rows will be dropped? So you have the length, and then you do drop NA again length, and then subtract the two, and then you get how many you are missing. Then we will do that later. B is if you do the same thing with all, and then C is how many if half are to be less. So you're looking at a thrash of half. So you take the length. Okay, so here now each row has how many values are possible in a given row. The same as the number of columns. So you take the number of columns, you look at the length of the number of columns, so that will give you how many columns there are, divide by 2, that's your half, and you set the thresh to half. So anything that has half as many good values will be retained. If less than half is good value, then they are rejected. So again, you get 6 half is not defined. So, okay. All right. So this is where we stopped last time, I think.